So you know how in the Princess Diaries, the books, not the movies, Mia Thermopolis goes through Greenwich Village all the time by herself with her friends at the age of 14. And she's just having a great time being a teenage girl. And in those great times when she's being a teenage girl, she'll like cross the street and she'll bring up random things as she sees around Greenwich Village while she's just like running around Greenwich Village. And one of those things is that there is a man who pretends to be blind to get people to help him cross the street so that he can grope them. And Mia brings this up constantly and she's like, yeah, no, like it's happened to all of us. It's kind of like a rite of passage. Like you learn not to help the guy who's helping people cross the street by like doing it yourself and then realizing, oh, he's gross, he's weird. And she, at the age of 14, takes this as like a big joke. Like she's laughing about it, she's cackling about it. She thinks it's like so funny because it's so totally something that a 14-year-old would think is funny. Like, he like assaulted me. That's so funny, but she wouldn't think of it as assault. She's like, he grabbed me. And so Mia and her friends one day are hanging out with Grandmere. Well, not really hanging out, but Grandmere is there. And Grandmere is like, Mia, go help that old man cross the street. He is blind. He needs your help. Be a princess. And Mia is like, Grandmere? No, I will not, but thank you for the opportunity to not do that. And Grandmere is like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. We have to help people. We are royalty. Our job is to assist people in need because we have it like so good, basically. And Mia's like, oh God, I don't even know what's gonna happen now. So Grandmere goes across the street and she goes to help the old blind man who is not in fact blind, and she starts helping him and he grabs her. And she starts beating the shit out of him with her bag, okay? She starts beating the crap out of him. She starts beating him senseless with her bag because of what he did to her. And A, only correct response to that specific scenario. B, they did not know that he was not actually blind. He's not actually blind. They thought he was just a creepy guy who like did this, but no. Like that's when they learned that he's not actually blind too. And it's an entire thing. It's very weird in the books how grown-ups never fully step in these scenarios, but B, they never fully step in the scenarios because I think it's a really great example. I think it's a really great example of how 14-year-olds like don't have a clue. Like they're not like, oh, this is so bad, it's so evil, it's so terrible that he did this. They're just like, for the plot, man. Haha. Like this is such a funny, silly thing that happened. I never want it to happen again for some reason, but how silly, how funny, what a joke, what a laugh. And then Grandmere is the one who like is finally like, no, that's illegal and disgusting and despicable and illegal. So we're gonna stay away from that man from now on. But it's one of my favorite Grandmere scenes, and I have a lot of favorite Grandmere scenes now that I'm an adult and get to read Grandmere in a completely different way. And yes, I know that I say Grandmere wrong. I'm not gonna say it in a different way. Because Grandmere is so in love with Mia. She loves her granddaughter. She loves that her granddaughter is going to take over the throne one day. She loves that her granddaughter is like so good at being a person, so good at being specifically a good person, even if Grandmere is like, you need to be more selfish. You need to be more selfish. Be more selfish. She's also secretly proud of Mia the entire time, no matter what. And it's just like, it's so sweet and it's so delightful. And then seeing Grandmere take care of herself, take care of her granddaughter, and beat the shit out of someone who absolutely deserved to have the shit beaten out of them by an old French lady. Iconic. Perfect. No notes. Like just perfect. Chef's kiss. Love her. But yeah, in the Princess Diaries, Mia will bring stuff up like this all the time. And it's just like a totally casual thing that she'll bring up, and then it turns out that it's like not casual. So as a kid, I was like, oh, I can't believe that he did that, but I didn't like think about it that much. And now as an adult, I'm like, it's like an entirely different scenario. So anyways, yeah, bye.
I've had neurodivergent Nate blocked for probably over a year now, but nothing will convince me that he isn't a rage bait account at this point. At some point, he may have made some genuine neurodivergent advocacy content, but the only thing on his page that gets any kind of engagement is this stuff where he makes thousands of people angry at the same time. Like, I can't even be mad about his video about how maternity leave shouldn't be a thing, because he is categorically wrong about every single point he tries to make in that video. There is no way he posted that and was like, yeah, everyone's gonna be super happy about this. Like, there's just no way. He posted it so that he would get clicks and views. And that's not to say he doesn't practice what he's preaching, but considering the type of stuff he claims to be an expert at on TikTok, I assume that he interacts with other parents all the time. And I highly doubt he talks to parents in real life who are struggling financially the same way he talks about them online. And if you scroll on his page for like 30 seconds, every single video is about something controversial. So while I understand the anger around his takes on maternity leave, because what the hell is that, my guy? What the hell was that? I also am like, every single one of his videos is that way. Every single one. It didn't used to be that way, but then he realized that that's what gets him engagement. So now every single one of his videos is that way, and if we continue to engage with him, it's just going to feed into his massive ego. He's not a good person. You cannot have productive conversations with him, believe me. And nobody watches his page anymore, so he's probably gonna keep double, tripling, and quadrupling down about this over the next few days, and it's just gonna be annoying. Like, it's not going to lead anywhere. Too many of my queer mutuals have been reposting videos shitting all over polyamorous people. Why did that all of a sudden become an okay thing to be doing? As an Oregonian who's lived here my whole life, I have seen, I understand the Portland polycule jokes. I get it. As a queer person who has spent their entire life being invalidated by people who do not like that my identity exists outside of the confines of heteronormative monogamy, I just have to ask you guys why you are being such enormous fucking hypocrites. Hypocrites! Okay? I'm shaming you! Yes, I am shaming you. If you're shitting all over polyamorous people on the internet, especially if you are queer, I'm shaming you. You're a hypocrite. You don't get to shit all over an entire demographic of people just because you were wronged by one of them. That's ignorant. All you're going to do if you chant, I don't like polyamorous people, I don't like polyamorous people, I don't like polyamorous people over and over and over again, is summon one in your bathroom mirror. And before anybody comes into my comments saying, we're not saying we don't like the polyamorous people who are ethical, we just don't like the insert person who's manipulative and doesn't actually know what polyamory is here. And in that case, you don't hate polyamorous people, you hate manipulative assholes who don't know the definitions of words. Like, I might not be polyamorous. I have several friends who are and are super happy, fulfilled, and content in healthy relationship dynamics. And when I see people that I know who are shitting all over polyamorous people online, I just see them making fun of my friends. Like, shut the fuck up. The way that depression doles you to reality when it gets really bad is actually so scary. I remember earlier this year there was a ton of discourse about something called time blindness, and it was used to describe how you perceive time passing when you have ADHD. Like, it's a lot harder for you to keep track of time, and it's a lot easier for you to be late to things and stuff like that. I feel like every summer I get depression time blindness. Like Bella in New Moon, I will feel like my depression isn't really affecting me all that much because I am just fully unaware of the world around me. Like, all of the days and months just bleed into each other. Like, I can count on one hand the number of locations I have been to other than the grocery store this summer. And I feel like I'm not missing anything because I'm not like in a headspace where anything is fun. But it's also like hard for me to keep track how long of a gap it's been between seeing people or doing things and leaving my house, because everything is so dulled. Even my like perception of time has been dulled. Every kind of sensory input has been dulled. Every emotion that I experience is like a dull version of that emotion. And it's not like I don't know what to do about it. Like, I have a good support system and medications and therapy and psychiatry and things that help. But the problem is still there. Just because you go to the doctor doesn't mean that the problem has been solved immediately. And I'm at that point in the year where my seasonal depression is starting to improve like really rapidly, really quickly. And I'm starting to wake up to like all of the stuff that I didn't do this summer, and it's super anxiety inducing and like also just kind of makes you feel like you haven't done anything. Like, what did I do with my summer? Nothing. And I'm not like mad about myself, and I don't feel bad about myself for it, but I do feel like it's super jarring to start to wake up to reality and realize how much time has gone by that you were like not really even aware of that was passing. Because every single one of those depressive episodes is like another COVID lockdown for me, and then I have to like reintegrate into society. But it's a new season, it's a new day, and my resolution for this year is to figure out how to stop the seasonal depression from happening before it happens. I didn't really have a brat summer this year, but next summer will be my mentally healthy summer. Mentally healthy summer. I don't really know what the point of this video was, but I feel like I haven't really talked about my mental health very much on here lately because it's been bad. It's been really bad. It's been so bad. But I feel like I talk a lot about it on here, so I should like let you guys know what's been going on. It's been so bad, you guys. Oh my god. But it's okay. I have a doctor and I have a therapist and I'm okay.
I am a massive pessimist as an accommodation for my autism.
Go watch the rest of Morgan's video, but I have always kind of called myself an optimistic pessimist because I need things to be done a very specific way, and the only way that I can prevent myself from completely melting down when that doesn't happen is by preparing myself for the ultimate worst case scenario and convincing myself to be okay with it. And then no matter what happens, I'm either pleasantly surprised because it went better than what I was expecting, or I was right and I was prepared and I still had a good time because everything went as I was expecting it to go. I think that's an incredibly optimistic way of looking at a situation. I think true pessimism would be assuming that it's going to go poorly and not allowing yourself to enjoy any aspect of what you're doing because of your assumption that it's going to turn out bad. Accepting that something might turn out poorly, but allowing yourself to enjoy the experience anyways is an incredibly optimistic way of looking at life. And also definitely reminds me of going to the airport with my dad when I was little and having every single possible worst case scenario planned in advance. And everybody would make fun of my dad for wanting to get to the airport 4 hours early and making sure that everybody had their passport at all times and all of these different little things that to us might have seemed like small deals, but they were ultimately what made our travel experience a lot less stressful than it needed to be. Because without all of those extra plans, we might have missed our flight, we might not have gotten the right seats, all of these different things may have happened. Being prepared for things to go south is not pessimism, that's preparation. And preparing for the worst is one of the best accommodations you can give yourself as an autistic person.
Let's do a book haul of some books that I got in August. Okay, so the first book I have was sent to me by Berkeley. I am literally always in Berkeley's email because they publish some of my favorite authors and books. So I'm always in the emails like, hey girlie, I want this book, and they send it to me, question mark. I also am automatically approved for NatGalley, so a lot of times I'll read them and then make sure I want them and then request them, and sometimes they send them because they love me. But anyway, so I got the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love, and this is a rivals to lovers historical romance, and it's about these two people who are trying to find this rare magical bird. It is so good. Like it's been so long since I read a like romance that I've like absolutely loved. I've actually taken a break from romance this year, and I read this one and it was literally 4 stars. Like, it was so good. I highly recommend. The next book in the series is Marriage and Convenience. I feel like we never get Marriage and Convenience, we always get fake dating, and I just prefer Marriage and Convenience. So I will be set for that next book, trust and believe. Okay, so then these are some books that I got when I was on vacation. So I got these 2 books when I was in Miami at the Miami airport. So I got Catalina, which I read on my flight, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This was so good. If you're looking for something that just gives like school, like if you're in college and you're looking for like college vibes, or maybe you're excited for college and you want college vibes, this follows an undocumented immigrant and her 1 year at Harvard, and it was so fun. Now, it's not told in like a linear time. I know a lot of people had an issue with that. Personally, I didn't care. I love the book either way. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And then I got Bright Young Women because I watched the movie The Luckiest Woman Alive, and I've been meaning to read it, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It's not necessarily like a thriller, but it's just very fascinating, and I really want to actually read something by this author. And then in the Nashville airport, which I loved, I need to visit Nashville for real because I was there for a layover, and I love the airport. Like, it was so nice, and I love the bookstore. But I got Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I got from NetGalley on Berkeley, and I saw that it was already published, so I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna buy it because I was already reading it and I'm liking it so far, so I don't mind buying it. But it's so fun. If you like video games and you like fantasy, definitely check this out. And then Little Brown sent me Immortal Dark, and this is Black Vampires. Look at the spine. Look at the spine. This was literally crazy. Black vampires in like an academia setting. All of my books that I want to read this month are like academia set. And then I got Carmilla sent to me from a subscriber, one of my favorite subscribers personally. Ruchama, if you're watching this, I love you. She supports me down. She like literally is always in my live. She's always in my comments. She's always like in my YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Like, she supports me down and I love it. And she bought me 2 gifts. She also bought me 2 gifts last year. Like, I am very appreciative of her. And I read Carmilla last fall because I love reading classics in fall, and I love vampires. I'm a vampire girl, if you didn't know, and so I obviously had to read sapphic vampires, and it delivered, of course. And so the last books were all sent to me by Avon because I emailed them and I was like, hey guys, what if you sent me some books? And they did. So they sent me Between Lovers and Friends. I've been seeing this book literally everywhere, and I've been wanting to read it because it looks like a love triangle, and I love love triangles. But if it's not, that's fine. And then I requested the entirety of Bridgerton. Not the entirety. I already own 2. I already own The Viscount and Me and Mr. Bridgerton. But I only didn't request 2, and that was Benedict books and Eloise books, and that's because I didn't care for either. Like, Benedict's books wasn't bad. It just, there was a scene where he was like, you should be my mistress, and I was like, ooh, that's not, it kind of lost its appeal to me. And then Eloise I just wasn't interested in. But I got Queen Charlotte because I watched the TV show and I loved it. My favorite, I love them. And then I got On the Way to the Wedding, which Gregory is my favorite Bridgerton. This book is my favorite. It would be Mr. Bridgerton and then this one. Like, Gregory is literally insane. He kidnaps his love interest. He's that insane. I love it. I love how insane they are. I love it. It's in his kiss when he was wicked, which is my 3rd fave, and I'm very excited for a sapphic love story, like a black Makela. Like, please, like, what more could you ask for? And then The Duke and I, which I just wanted to like have more books in the series. So now I almost own all of them, and I don't know if I'll get the other 2, but we'll see. And then lastly for this book haul, I got the Book of Doors, but this is actually Harper Voyager, not Avon. But I've been seeing this like all over BookTube. Okay, I saw one person on BookTube talk about it and I wanted it. I need to get back into my fantasy bag because I feel like I've been severely lacking, but that's okay because we're gonna get into it. So yeah, that's my book haul. I'll probably do an even longer one with some more books on BookTube, so maybe be on the lookout for that. Y'all, why did I finally go and look at the account of the author who wrote that dark romance book about a real life like unaliver, serial unaliver, right? The one who unalived like women, and he was in court for it, and she wrote a romance about it. Why did I finally go look at her profile? And I'm about to say something mean, so if you're one of those people who like to, you know, let's be all nice, let's love each other, get the hell up out of here, okay? Why I finally go to her account, she looked like that's the type of shit that she read. She looked like she gotta read dark romance. Oh, that was about to be too mean. She looked like she gotta read dark romance because she can't get no man in real life. Like, yeah, when I saw her account, I was like, this makes sense. Y'all are so messy because why did that video of me calling that author ugly go viral? I literally posted because I was like, oh, my account, like my videos have been flopping, like doing terrible, like astronomically bad. I was like, oh, I can be mean on here and nobody's gonna see it. Clearly 60,000 people have seen it. Y'all are messy. This is all of y'all fault. I came back, that video had 10k views. I had to go and block the lady because y'all are messy. Y'all are messy. Did she deserve it though? Absolutely, but y'all are messy. So I saw this tweet on my timeline the other day, and I saw it because this person is my mutual, and then this person quoted it, and I thought it was kind of insane to just quote somebody being like, now watching with your opinion of the show, instead of just posting the poster on your own and then showing the opinion. Like, I feel like this was kind of malicious in a way, low-key, but whatever. I'm making this video because I feel like people need to start watching things to form opinions of their own, because I watched the show and I can tell you it is not like Abbott Elementary. Okay, it's about an English teacher, it's about a school, it's about teachers in a school, yes, but it is nothing like Abbott Elementary, and it's not like, oh, taking Abbott Elementary and like making it white. No, because the show is still diverse. Like the English teacher is a gay character, but also the background characters are also like, not the background characters, but the students, very diverse. Like they have black girls, black boys, just diverse period, like along the lines. And they also have queer characters. Like it's a very diverse show. And if it wasn't for shows like Abbott Elementary, we would not be getting shows like English Teacher. Like, I think there's a difference between just blatantly like stealing something and then making it white versus having a similar idea and like having a show that paved the way for you, but they're just both follow like schools. Anyways, I highly encourage you to check out English Teacher. Like, it was such a fun show. Another thing I want to talk about is people were like, oh, the show isn't diverse. Mind you haven't watched the show, because if you did, there are a lot of black girls in the school. Or it's not, and when I say diverse, I'm not just talking about black. I'm speaking about black because I am black and I saw people talking about black people, so I want to point that out. But also Aaliyah Core is in the show, and I saw a lot of people were like, somebody pointed out, they were like, there's a black girl right there, and they were like, oh, but she has pink hair and long nails. What are you trying to say? Because I know what you're trying to say, so say it. Go ahead. Anyways, I think that we should all start watching things to form opinions for ourselves versus listening to Twitter outrage, because then we're gonna miss out on really good TV. I'm not missing out. The second episode is one of my favorite episodes of like new age TV right now. Also, if you love Glee, this is Glee without the singing. To be honest, it doesn't have any of the insane plot lines yet, but this show is definitely for my Gleeks, and if you watch it, you'll know what I'm trying to say. But I recommend it in general. Like, it's so funny, and it's so good, and it's so entertaining, and honestly, it's one of like the best like shows that are coming out right now. Like, it just, I really need a season 2, to be honest. And when I need season 2 with 22 episodes, okay? Yeah, let's get to it.
We often forget what our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' generations did to get good, well-behaved kids. And I think about that a lot when people are like, I don't blame kids for being annoying, I blame their parents for not parenting. Because, yeah, some people don't parent. Some people don't discipline their kids. They don't talk to them. And that's why little Tommy is jumping off the chairs at the doctor's office. But speaking in broad strokes, we have a generation of parents who are trying to parent, to treat their kids like actual human beings. And that's why you see some of the things that you see. Like, up until recently, like, this generation of parents, hitting your child to get them to cooperate was the norm, the standard, the thing to do. It was weird if you didn't. Like back in the 80s, little Tommy jumps on the chairs at the doctor's office. You take your belt off and beat little Tommy. Now, does he grow up to beat his partners? Who knows? That's not something they talked about. But does little Tommy jump on those chairs again? No. Is your baby crying in public because they're teething? Blast it back to the past and put some whiskey on those teeth or some moonshine. Problem solved. Plus, nowadays, parents are working 2 and 3 jobs trying to stay afloat in this awful economy, and that just wasn't the case back in the day. I'm not saying the other generations got everything wrong by any means, but I am saying it's different. Now we have a generation of parents trying to raise their kids with emotional intelligence and self-awareness, with minimal resources to go off of, with almost less time than ever before, in a society that really doesn't value kids, and so they lack a village and community to work with. I actually don't blame parents 90% of the time. Everybody is just trying to figure it out. But what if we stopped? What if we stopped supporting Chris Brown? What if we stopped platforming him? What if we stopped funding him? What if we stopped providing him with virtually unlimited access to new people to harm? What if we stopped and held him accountable and others like him accountable? That would stop what he has going on for the better. People will continue to support Chris Brown the same way people continuously support R. Kelly and his music that keeps reappearing on this app every couple of months, the same way people will continuously support their abusive uncles and fathers and cousins and friends. That's because we, and I specifically mean Black women here, don't demand the better that we deserve, even though we know that we deserve it. We are disproportionately victims of SA and abuse and harm and violence in general, and we know this, and yet when it comes to our abusers, both individually and as a collective, we fold, we forgive, we keep secrets, we move on, we do whatever it is, especially if that abuser has a position of power. And we do this for our family members and our loved ones, we do this in our communities, and we do it for celebrities. But if we stopped giving them this power and started holding them accountable and demanding better, starting with celebrities, maybe someday it would trickle down to our communities and to our lived lives, where we can start seeing and receiving the better that we deserve. And you're right, me hating Chris Brown alone isn't going to change anything, but if we as a collective stopped supporting him and actually held him accountable, maybe he'd have to have a consequence for his well over a decade's worth of harm and violence. And maybe we would learn something from that and hold other people accountable too. Cam Newton, father of 8 kids by 3 different women, married to none of them, recently said in an interview that he wants more kids, but he's afraid of getting married, prompting people to ask, why do men think that kids are less of a commitment than marriage? And it's because, sadly, they're right. When we think about the consequences of men having kids, 9 times out of 10, men get to pick what those consequences kind of look like. If he wants to be around and be an active participant, then he is, and if he doesn't, then he just disappears. Yeah, maybe he has to pay child support, but very rarely does that amount to the amount of time, energy, and money the other parent is putting into parenting. We don't even hold men accountable for the kids they leave behind. We blame women for that, somehow. Even if he is an active parent, the question is, what is active? Oftentimes we have conversation about women who are solo parenting their kids while their husband might tune in occasionally to change a diaper or to hold a bottle before he goes on with whatever his interests are. Meanwhile, if a man gets married, he can't just do what he wants to do anymore. He is tied down to the old ball and chain, or else he's labeled as a bad husband and a bad man. And while a man may or may not end up paying child support, if he gets a divorce, he will be paying alimony or 50% of assets or whatever that consequence is. So we made a culture where there are fewer consequences for men to have kids than to get married. And all they have to do is convince a woman that it's scary to get married and they're golden. So they do. You're the center of the universe. Your likes and dislikes and wants do not dictate how other people should behave, and you don't get to be mean when people do things that you just don't like. I'm not talking like human rights. I'm talking like regular folk trying to chill and mind their business and be who they want to be. Like if Chappell Roan doesn't want to hug or doesn't want to be touched or doesn't want to be harassed or stalked or called by her name in public, that's her prerogative. And you don't get to be mad about that. It's not just her. Anytime anyone does something y'all don't like, even if it's just cringe or a little embarrassing, y'all are so quick to jump to the nearest extreme. It's not okay. Y'all remember the Australian breakdancer from the Olympics? Yeah, she couldn't dance, but as a result, people have been literally sending her unalive threats because she can't dance. Or if a content creator ever does something cringe or embarrassing or something that you just don't like or wouldn't do, it doesn't give you the right to be mean. I don't know if it's because we spend so much time having all of our content and media curated to our likes and dislikes, but we exist in the real world with real people with real feelings. You don't just get to be mean because something crossed you that you don't like. You are not the center of the universe, babe, and it's never that deep. But you are the center of your universe, and if you see something that you don't like, walk away. It's always, why call anyone out? You're race baiting, you're perpetuating racism, and never, why are people doing things to harm marginalized communities? Why are they always speaking over them? Why is there always a reason to be called out? Like if people, and in this instance it's white women, but not always, just in general, actually stopped and asked themselves, hi, sweet pea. As I was saying, if people, not only white women, but in this instance, white women, actually ask themselves, what can I do to be a better supporter and advocate for communities of color? What can I do to give space for their voices? How can I be a better listener? What can I do to reduce the sheer volume of call outs we get in a day, a month, a year? That would actually be more productive than yelling at people for calling you out. Because people wouldn't call you out if there wasn't harm always done. But y'all never want to start with the source. Y'all do a lot of treating symptoms and not enough treating sources. And as a result, myself and others can always quote unquote race bait because y'all will always perpetuate some type of harm against other races. Always. Always. When I got this comment today talking about how hateful and awful black women are on a post I made literally years ago, I thought surely this must be a bot, because I don't want to believe, like many of you, that people are genuinely this mean and think these thoughts in this day and age. But I was wrong. It's a real person, and that makes me sad for a bunch of reasons. The biggest reason is that as a collective, black women are some of the kindest, gentlest, most empathetic people I've ever met that realistically you've ever met. If you're trying to take a picture of your outfit on the street, a black girl is likely going to offer to take it for you, help you pose, and hype you up along the way. You've got toilet paper on you or a stain on the back of your outfit, a black girl is going to tell you. If you're crying on the side of the road, a black girl is going to help you. And I know this not only from experience, but because when we see all those prank videos, the people always stopping to help and offer this kindness is black women. And in fact, they oftentimes head a lot of our advocacy movements, even for groups that they're not in. And yet we are perceived as so mean and hateful and nasty because what we do is try to establish boundaries or express hurt. I've been getting a lot of comments like this on my old stuff lately, but they're almost exclusively on videos where I try to express some type of hurt. And yet as a result, we are called hateful and nasty. And I don't know what makes me sadder. The fact that I'm a Black woman in community with Black women, raising a little Black girl, knowing that this is how we are perceived and this is what people think of us no matter what we do, and that we can't even express hurt. Or if it's knowing that a lot of y'all will miss out on the joy and kindness and love that we have to offer because you can't get over your bigotry enough to cut your listening ears on. Man has multiple babies with multiple baby mamas, and he says he wants more babies but doesn't want to marry anybody. The villain in that story is him. It's not the women that came beforehand. It's not the hypothetical women that come after. The bad guy is him. In fact, any decisions that a man makes in the creating and raising of children and in the creating and building of families is his own, and it is his own to be praised for and to be judged for, and we really don't need to keep bringing up women in this. And yes, it takes two to tango, which means we should think about women and their choices when it comes to having kids and having families, but that's all we ever do, and as a result we have actual supervillains running among us. Closest analogy I can think of is like men who cheat. Yeah, you can get mad at the girl, but the villain in that story 98% of the time, disproportionately, is that man who was responsible for his own conscious decision making. If it takes two to tango, then it should be a 50-50 split, both in responsibility and in blame and shame. And it isn't. Women overwhelmingly carry the responsibility of raising these kids, and they carry a disproportionate amount of the blame and the shame for having them. Meanwhile, we have men, whether they're on the Cam Newton, Nick Cannon level of villainy, or just your uncle who can't keep his legs closed, going around, making kids, tearing up families, abandoning kids, and getting away with it scot-free because y'all always want to go, okay, but like, what about the women in that scenario? Baby, what about them? We need to be able to have conversations about men and their actions without y'all automatically wanting to drag women and their role in it into it. Because after a certain point, a villain is a villain. And that's the end. Everybody knows water is critical for life. It is critical for survival. Your body is like 60% of it. You need clean water to live. Everybody knows that. And that is why everybody weaponizes it. Not only has the IDF prevented food from entering Palestine as well as hygiene products, and biowarfare is a whole separate but important conversation to have, it has also denied access to clean water. Not only do they prevent clean water from entering, but the infrastructure in Gaza is so destroyed that the overwhelming majority, 97% of water in Gaza is polluted. It's so bad that CNN actually reported on it, pointing out that children are drinking out of puddles and walking around in actual sewage. Not only are people incredibly dehydrated, but diseases spreading around like wildfire, diseases like polio. While this is by far one of the worst examples of using water as a weapon, it isn't the only example. In Canada, the over 600 Indigenous communities have limited to no access to fresh water, despite the fact that Canada has like the third largest freshwater reserve in the world. This has been going on for decades. In the US, poor infrastructure decisions have polluted drinking water across the country, especially for many marginalized communities like Flint, Michigan, and we refuse to fix it. These are just a few examples like off the dome. The weaponization of water has been used as a tool to control marginalized communities and has been so for years. We have to be aware of that because none of what we're seeing is on accident. So Keke Palmer posted pictures with the father of her child on Monday for her birthday, and they've been seen kind of out and about together. And I just want to remind y'all, it takes an abuse victim on average 7 times to leave their abuser, more if they have children. We don't know if they're back together or not, or if they're just spending time together for the sake of their child or whatever it is, what have you. But before y'all start going in on Keke Palmer for filing that restraining order back in November and then spending time with him now, I want to remind y'all, it takes a DV victim on average like 7-ish times to leave, and more if they have kids. The most dangerous time for a victim is also whenever they are trying to stand up for themselves, whenever they're trying to leave. And on top of that, 1 out of every 3 women in the United States have experienced some type of intimate partner violence over the course of her lifetime. That is 40% for Black women specifically. The point being that this occurrence is tragically pretty common. I say all this to say, before we get up on that high horse of judgment where we like to sit and look down on people, just have some grace for others, and remember that as much as you want to say it could never be me, it could never be me, statistically it is somebody. Statistically it will be one at least of the it could never be me's, because it could happen to anybody. Anyway, I hope Keke Palmer had a great birthday. According to her, she did much drinking. Blessed be. This is not fun and games. It has never been fun and games. Keke Palmer, like, again, 1 out of every 3 women in the United States is a victim of intimate partner violence. It doesn't take these victims multiple tries to leave because it's all fun and games, or because they don't care about themselves, or because they don't understand that their children and their loved ones are in danger. That's just not true. Not as an excuse, but as a reality to the situation, is that these people, overwhelmingly women, have been manipulated, gaslighted, brainwashed, literally beaten into submission. They make choices that you and I feel like we would never make because we're not in that situation. And it feels naive to acknowledge that, but it isn't, because that's the truth. We don't know why Keke Palmer has dropped the restraining order and continuously interacts with the father of her child. We don't know why. We don't know these people. But not only is she dealing with, and likely still has love for, a violent person and likely a narcissistic person, a genuine narcissist, not the people online who lie to you a couple of times. We also live in a society that condemns women for not working it out with their baby daddy, for not trying to have the happy home, for not doing blah, 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 blah. And it is because of that, and because of the isolation and the fear and all the other things, both within the relationship and societally, that a lot of these women don't leave when it feels like it's so obvious to do so. So it's actually never been fun and games. Both Keke and her son could very well be in a dangerous situation. But us sitting here in judgment, being like, oh, there's no excuse for this behavior, blah, 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 is exactly how a lot of women end up isolated, how they end up staying, and how they end up getting hurt. And that, to act like that is not the reality of the situation, is what is naive here, because we've seen it play out thousands of times. When we talk about gender affirming care, people often associate it with really big and valuable treatments like hormone therapy or surgery. And again, while those things are so important, the thing is, all care should be gender affirming because all providers should be able to treat their patients with care, dignity, and bodily autonomy. There is no harm that comes with giving gender affirming care, which is using people's correct pronouns, looking at them holistically as human beings, validating their experiences, and actually treating the problem. But there is a lot of harm that comes with denying it. Trans people are less likely to seek out medical care unless it's literally an emergency because of the stigma and discrimination that they face, as many have reported having negative experiences in office if they aren't turned away. And they have been turned away. Like Joseph Shiner, who's a trans man that had to go to multiple OBGYNs before he found someone willing to treat his symptoms. Come to find out, he had ovarian cancer. And that's something that is so urgent and could have been treated so much sooner had someone given him the gender-affirming care that he deserved. So all care should be gender-affirming care, because breaking this cycle of stigma and shame and discrimination is critical to saving people's lives, and it takes no more than the barest minimum human decency to do so. Poverty leads to poverty, and terminating a pregnancy is not free, and I think that's something people forget when they say that poor people shouldn't have kids. In addition to it being a eugenicist take, because who are you to determine who is and is not worthy of having children, it is also completely unaware of the reality that we live in. In my state, it cost about $600 for the pills it would take to end a pregnancy, a little bit more if you end up going the other option. If you find out too late, if you do not have the over $500 that it takes to get this done, if you cannot come up with that over $500 that it takes to get this done within the allotted 4 to 8 weeks that you get, then congratulations, you are having a baby. And yes, that will only lead to more poverty, but much like having a cavity that you can't afford to get fixed means that you eventually will have to pay for the root canal or the removal of your tooth, that is the reality of the situation that we live in. If you really cared about the well-being of these kids the way that you say you do when you guys come up with these takes, and you'd be advocating for things like social welfare, free access to healthcare, free access to food, especially for kids, but you don't. And y'all say it's not your responsibility to take care of other people's kids. They should have planned better. That's not where you want your tax dollars going, blah, blah, blah. But your tax dollars every single day goes towards the destruction of children's lives around the world every single day. And I personally would rather have my tax dollars going towards supporting lives and supporting children and supporting families as opposed to slaughtering them, personally. So if this is really an issue that you care about deep down to your core, then it's time that you put your actions where your mouth is, because otherwise all you're doing is spouting this eugenicist rhetoric to justify your hatred of women and children. You do not always get sole custody of your child if you are trying to leave an unsafe situation. Did y'all know that? It is important to me that y'all know that information. Ever since Keke Palmer posted those pictures with her ex, people have been saying things like, oh, a woman can stay in an unsafe relationship if she wants to, but as soon as she has a kid, she needs to leave, or else she's an irresponsible parent and a bad mom. And I can see that train of black and white thought, but I need y'all to see the nuances and color of the situation. Not only is leaving the most dangerous time for a woman in an unsafe relationship, but just because she leaves does not mean she gets to take that child with her. Putting aside the harm, manipulation, gaslighting, and brainwashing that prevents people from getting this proof, you need extensive documentation for the courts that this person is unsafe for you and your child, or else you might not get sole custody, especially if you were once married. Even then, if you don't get documentation that they are a threat to the child, you still might end up having to split custody in some capacity. Which means that at some point in that child's life, they might end up completely alone with that hurtful, harmful parent. No buffer, no protection around. And sometimes that person would never ever harm that child. They only have it out for their former partner. But that is oftentimes not the case, because if a person is willing to harm their partner, someone that is vulnerable, that they're supposed to care about, they are willing to do it to someone else, like their kid. That is just one of the myriad of things that people have to think about when they're trying to leave these unsafe situations. It is not just as simple as, oh, they're unsafe, so I need to leave. And I wish it was, but it isn't. Before we sit up on our high horse of judgment and look down upon others, we need to remember just how complex these situations can be, because it is not as easy as just getting up and walking away, especially when you have a child. So you're supposed to get paid maternity leave because we live in a society with other human beings. And as a community, we agree that those human beings are supposed to be supported and cared for beyond their capacity to do labor. And to think otherwise is because we live in a hyper-individualistic society where we feel like we don't owe anybody anything, but everybody else in the world is laughing at us for takes like this. Now, if you know, you know, and if you don't, it's for the best. But I think we all need to remember we were not put on this earth to work all day and night. We are supposed to go out and pursue our other interests, make human connection, do the things that make us happy, whether that's a passion project or having a family. And because we are communal creatures that live together in a society, we are supposed to take care of and look out for each other, or because we have a government that we pay to do so, let someone else take care of us. We're supposed to get paid maternity leave, and it should be longer than 6 weeks so that bodies can heal and so that bonds can be made with the new human being in the world. And not having the money to not get paid for upwards of 6 weeks, sometimes more if you need more time to heal, isn't a result of bad planning. It's a result of your government and your companies not caring about you. And your coworkers being swamped with work because you're out on leave isn't a result of you being a bad employee. It's a result of your, again, company not planning for your absence and finding someone to take on that load because they're cheap and don't want to pay someone else to do it. And that goes for all other types of leave. You should get more time when you're sick. That is paid, because just because you got sick doesn't mean your bills disappear. You should get more paid time for bereavement, because you shouldn't be out of funds on top of the grief of losing someone that you love. We should get paid vacation time, because not only are employees better when they are like rested and fulfilled and happy, but because again, we are not put on this earth to work day and night. Our industries and companies and our government is failing us across the board, and that is the problem here, not ladies having babies. Let's focus on the plot.
Mia's dad in The Princess Diaries is like the most clueless man alive, and it's actually so charming because he absolutely loves his daughter 100%, but he's so bad at showing it. One, I'd say kind of because he's French and she's American, and he's a royal Frenchman. Like, he's Genovian, but Genovia is basically France. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it is. And he's so awkward and so, like, masculine that he doesn't know how to show his emotions to his daughter. So the one thing that he does know that will A, always make her happy, B, always cheer her up, C, always make her day, is that if Mia's having a bad day, if Mia's having a good day, if Mia needs a reward, if Mia needs anything, he will take her to see the Broadway Beauty and the Beast, because in this time period when the Princess Diaries books were being written, it was still on Broadway, and he would take her constantly to see Beauty and the Beast, and it was the one thing that Mia loved. And Mia loves a lot of things, but it's the one thing that she and her dad would constantly do together. And she'd just be like, yeah, Dad's visiting, we're gonna go see Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. It's the best. It's the most romantic thing ever. I love Beast, and it's so cute and it's so sweet. But my favorite part of it is that this man also really likes Beauty and the Beast. Like, he's not just there being like, oh, can't believe I'm here, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, he actually also thinks that it's magical. He actually also loves doing this with his daughter. He loves knowing that there's this thing that he can do, that he specifically is the one to do, that will make her happy, that will make her feel better, that will like brighten her day. And it's just such a dad thing to like choose the one thing and stick with it forever. But Mia loves it. Mia finds nothing but joy in it. Mia talks about it in her diary all the time. And, like, it's not like Philippe doesn't know his daughter. It's not like he doesn't know other ways to, like, cheer her up or bribe her, because he does have to bribe her to be a princess an awful lot. And the number one way that he bribes her to be a princess is by paying her, but not specifically paying her, because her mom would often get mad at him for, like, paying her large sums of money. So instead of paying Mia, he makes large donations to Greenpeace, because Mia's dream in life is to be a part of Greenpeace, and she wants to save the whales, and saving the whales is, like, the most important thing, and she cares about the ecosystem. So he was like, I will pay $300 a week to Greenpeace if you will please just do this job. Your job is being a princess. Do the job. Do the job. And then later it becomes like Mia has this emergency credit card that she actually starts using when she becomes friends with Lana Weinberger, and that's an entire thing. But Mia's dad, there is no doubt when you're reading these books, A, how much Mia loves her dad, because she's able to mock him and she's able to feel safe mocking him. And B, how much he loves her right back, because, like, he actively tries to spend time with his child, even when he really doesn't have to. He's flying across the world to see her all the time on a whim. And that's magical. That's absolutely magical. He loves his daughter almost as much as he loves being a whore. Maybe more, because again, Mia's dad is a whore. Anyways, thanks. Bye! Skylar from Friends is actually a very scary person that we have all known in real life, and we don't realize how scary he is until it's too late often, because it's really hard to recognize when someone like Ross Geller is being scary, because he seems so kind, because he seems so charming, because he seems so silly. He seems silly, honestly. And the thing is, I've been talking about this for years. I've hated Ross Geller for most of my life. When I was a little kid, I did not understand why Rachel wanted to be with him. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. I was a Chandler girly 100,000%, okay? And now my friend Elisa is talking about her hatred of Ross Geller. And the funny thing is, our hatred of Ross Geller is what brought our friendship together. So yeah, that's like always a delightful thing, always perfect, always wonderful. But the thing is, Ross Geller has always gotten his way. He's not only the oldest child, he's the oldest son. He's the oldest son of people who did not want another child after they had him, because they had found perfection. They had created perfection. And by creating perfection, they then didn't actually want another child. What they wanted was a scapegoat. They wanted a scapegoat, and they got that scapegoat in the form of Monica Geller, Ross's little sister. So for Monica's entire life, she is being not only ignored, but mocked. She's being fattened up so that they have another thing to mock her about. They're always constantly harping on how fat she is, and how ugly she is, and how fat and ugly and hopeless and useless she is. Her name is used as a verb around the house. Oh, you pulled a Monica. You pulled a Monica. And pulling a Monica means that you failed. You wanted to do something and you failed so miserably that you pulled a Monica, because Monica has never been able to succeed at anything in her entire life. Ross Geller lets it happen. And here's the thing. There is a certain amount that I won't blame Ross Geller for certain things about how they grew up, because yes, he's the older brother, but he also is just a child in the house at the same time as Monica being a child in the house. The bigger issue is when he's older, when they're older, and Monica is pointing out all of the ways that their parents treated them differently. Not only treated them differently, but treated him like he was a hero, like he was a god, like he was the best thing that has ever happened to society, and treated her not only like a pariah, but like the mud on the bottom of their shoes that actually turns out to be dog poop and makes your day even worse, okay? Like, no one in that family ever treated Monica well, even with a semblance of wellness. And Ross never gave a shit, but even as he gets older, and even as he and Monica become closer and are hanging out together and are becoming best friends, he doesn't care about how their parents treat her. He doesn't care about how anyone treats anyone else other than him. If he's not being mistreated, he does not give a shit. And that is actually scary behavior, and I am going to bring up and bring in the movie Blink Twice into this moment. Now, reminder, I have been talking about Blink Twice for weeks now, because the trigger warning in that film was A, not enough, and B, the film was marketed and advertised as like a dark thriller comedy, and that is not what it was because of the graphic scenes that came with it. But because of the graphic scenes where we found out that all of these men had been assaulting the women on the island, drugging and assaulting them every night, there's this one guy this one blonde little cutie patootie guy who seems kind, who seems sweet, and we see in the flashbacks that he's actually crying. He's crying, he's running away, and you're like, oh, he's actually being hurt too. He's being assaulted too. That's bringing something else in. That's bringing so much more depth to this. And then Channing Tatum has a speech where he says, as the little blonde guy goes, what did I do? What did I do? Did I do something? Like, what's happening? What am I not remembering? And Channing Tatum says that he did nothing. That he did nothing. He watched. He let it happen. He let all this stuff happen to these women, and he did nothing. And that makes him just as bad as all the men, if not worse. And honestly, it's Channing Tatum trying to, like, take away all the fault of himself, like being a bad guy, yes. But it's also true because he watched and he did nothing. And because he's watching and doing nothing and not trying to stop anybody, he's actively letting it happen. And Ross Geller actively lets bad things happen to every person in his life continuously, not even just including Monica, but including Chandler, his best friend. He would rather have his parents absolutely hate his best friend for the rest of his life than have his parents realize and learn that actually his best friend was not the one who did all these things. Ross would get people fired rather than have to admit that he did something wrong. Ross would have people hate his friends rather than admit that he'd done something wrong. He would not take blame. No matter what, he would put the blame on someone else, and that's actually scary because in a sitcom, it's just like funny little silly things, but in real life, that could so easily topple over into more. Anyways, David Schwimmer is a Zionist, so we are going to go back to supporting this thing that should have been up here on the screen the entire time. We'll see. I don't know how long it'll be up here or when it's going to be starting, but because I haven't edited it yet. But this is an educational program in Gaza. It's when you donate, you are giving money to the teachers who are going to be working to bringing these tents and bringing these books to the children in Gaza who have not had access to education in almost an entire year. You're going to be helping the teachers to get paid. You're going to help funding the tent. You're going to be helping fund the education of these children. And if you can donate even just $1, even $5, if you can donate anything, that would be amazing. And if you cannot donate and can share to someone else and can share to somewhere else and just share the link around. The link is in my bio. It's right there. It's under my link tree, first one up. And I think that this program is really exciting because I think that education is so important. And it's also something that is bringing a bit of light and a bit of joy to people's lives in the scariest possible circumstances ever. So thank you so much for listening. I hate Ross Geller. I love this program. You have a wonderful day. There is exactly one thing I will defend Ross Geller on, and I will defend him on it to the death, and that is his relationship with Carol and Susan, because Ross actually did deserve better. When we first meet Ross, he has not only been left by his wife, he's been left by his wife for a woman in the 90s when that was not something that happened. That was not something that anyone would have trained him on or talked about. I think it was just like one Woody Allen movie at the time where this became a concept. And not only that, he then finds out that his wife, Carol, who is actively leaving him for a woman, is pregnant. And then the woman that Carol is leaving Ross for, Susan, who actively treats Ross like garbage, who actively treats Ross like he's the worst human being on the planet, before Ross has actually turned into the worst human being on the planet, mind you. Susan acts like she has more right to this child than Ross does. She acts like the baby is hers, that the baby belongs to her, that the baby is hers and should have her last name, not even Carol's last name, Susan's last name, because it's her baby too. And that's not a thing. If Susan were a man named Steven, no one would be on Susan and Carol's side. No one would be on the side of Steven and Carol. During everything that Ross goes through in the first couple of seasons of the show, every time he talks to them, Ross deserved better from Carol. I hate Ross Geller. I hate him so much. I hate him with all my heart and soul. But you know who I hate more? Susan. Because Susan was actively alienating Ross from that entire situation, and we laugh at it. because Ross sucks. You know when Ross doesn't actually suck? In the beginning, when he's trying to get what's happening with his wife. And again, it's the 90s. This wasn't a popular big thing that was happening then. It wasn't something that was madly, continuously talked about. Even in the year 2010, if that had happened to a man, people would be laughing at him, kind of trying to figure it all out. And people act like Ross is a monster for it. And honestly, he's not. Because if Susan were Steven, no one would be on Steven's side. No one would ever be on Steven's side for being like, well, it's my baby too. It's my child too. No, it's not. You will be a part of that child's life. You will be that child's step-parent, yes. But you will specifically be that child's step-parent. Specifically. And also, the biological father who's actively asking to be a part of the biological father who was actively asking to be a part of the child's life, who was married to the mother while the child was consummated, who was not aware that the child was going to exist until the divorce was filed. And mind you, the divorce was not on Ross. Ross deserved better. Ross deserved better in one circumstance ever, and it's between Carol and Susan because they treated him like garbage. We can actually watch the timeline of how terribly Susan and Carol treat Ross to how he becomes a continuously worse person. They suck. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. Also, it's not him not trying to get along with Susan. He actually does try to get along with Susan. He's trying to. He makes bad jokes, which is what Ross does. And Susan makes mean comments right back to him. She is not trying to get along with him. She does not want him to be a part of their lives. Okay, thanks. Bye. Here's the thing, I block people when they try to tell me that Rachel was just as toxic as Ross and Friends, because the thing is, Ross is dangerous levels of toxic where it could be easily implied that this man is abusive as the show goes on. Rachel talked a girl into shaving her head when she was already thinking about shaving her head and really wanted to do it and would probably do it anyways. Ross gets so angry he has to be put on sabbatical and sent to therapy in the fear that he might hurt someone. Rachel flew to her friend's wedding to tell him that she loved him, and then in the end did not tell him because she realized that what she was doing was wrong. Do we see the difference? Do we? Wow, that is so funny. It is so weird. It's so weird that I'm laughing and smiling while talking about a trigger warning. That didn't exist. It wasn't a real trigger warning. It was just a mockery of what trigger warnings are supposed to be. It's really funny that, I was laughing and smiling. It's almost like laughing is a natural defense mechanism that women have been trained to use for centuries. Because if you're scared, often you will actually laugh and you will often smile because you don't know how to behave in the situation, and your body's defense is to try and pull you out of it through the laughing, through the smiling. It's a defense mechanism, especially when you're thinking about something such as, I don't know, let's think about it. Oh, assault. Sexual assault, the thing I was talking about in that video. It's almost like when you talk about it, sometimes you laugh, not in the, oh, this is so funny way, because that's not my this is so funny laugh. That's my, wow, this was a really shocking experience and I don't know what to do with it or how to react, so I guess I should laugh before I don't know, cry.